Okay, very last one is going to be my last double bill for the minute. Sorry if you can hear something in the background, that's actually my washing machine going off. It just seems to be noisier than usual bloody thing. But moving on, Terminator 1, The Terminator, and Terminator 2, Judgment Day. I actually saw this film, well, I actually bought it as a couple of quid out of HMV in my local branch at Crawley when I lived at home. And I just didn't really think about it. And I just only walking home from work one day and just took a detour. And I got home and I'd seen it before, but it was such a long time beforehand. In the time between I'd seen it, I wasn't really that fussed about it. And then I watched it again, and I was like, "Oh my god, this film is amazing!" And it really is. There are no CGI pieces in this film. It's all done by by the great mind that was Stan Winston. Again, God rest his soul, who actually built a complete Terminator and then built a second one, but obviously split it in half. But I'll come to that in a minute. Originally, this okay. Originally, this film was actually done on a very tight budget, and a lot of people thought that Arnie at the time was actually being a little bit flipped out. Like, for instance, there's a scene where the Terminator breaks into a car and then just drives off with it. That scene was actually done for, obviously that was for real, that scene. But what they had to do was they had to film it and then do the whole scene before anyone called the police. And if they did, they then had to explain why they were doing it. But the general gist of the film is this: the Terminator comes from the future in the year 2029, which is 15 years from now, in case you actually wondered the math. And after an event called Judgment Day, where a computer known as Skynet took over, it launched all of the ICBMs. So, if you want to know what that is, it's intercoastal ballistic missile, which are effectively nuclear missiles, and hit places like Russia, who then retaliated and etc. And effectively wiped out. It's something like 3 billion lives. It says 3 billion human lives ended on August 29th, 1997. Right, on August 29th, 1997. And then the survivors basically were kind of pulled together and made to build factories for the machines, and those who died just died and no remorse or anything was left. And we were pretty much on the verge of extinction until a man rose from the camps and basically taught everyone how to fight, and that guy was called John Connor, but I'll come to him in a minute. This story, however, revolves around three people. You've got the Terminator itself, who has very little dialogue in it. You have Kyle Reese, who is Michael Benn, awesome actor, who's in Aliens, in case you just watched my previous review, and Linda Hamilton, who plays Sarah Connor, the main target as such. So the Terminators come back in through time to kill Sarah Connor, and Kyle Reese has followed to protect her. The only problem is he doesn't know if he can stop it because of the weapons that we have at the time. At the time, are not effective enough on something that's basically made of metal. So, and at the same time, Kyle Reese has to convince Sarah that he's not just some nut job who just wants to basically kidnap her or do whatever he's going to do. Um, it so he basically follows her to a nightclub after her roommate and her boyfriend are killed, but at this point she doesn't know about this. And previously, two other Sarah Connors have been killed. This is because all the records during the war were destroyed, so Skynet had to go with what it knew, and the Terminator was being systematic and just working its way through the phone book. This is why I'm not in the phone book, in case you want to find me. Because I'm ex-directory. Not that you're gonna stalk me or anything, because well, why would you? Um, so the Terminator finds her and tries to kill her, but Kyle Reese intervenes and saves her life. They get away, and the Terminator just disappears for a little bit because it's heavily damaged. So it starts to do things like it sorts its arm out, it pulls its eye out because that's pretty much useless, and that's where you start to get a glimpse of the fact that this is actually a robot under human skin. Um, then Carl Reese goes into the background of Judgment Day, the Terminators, Skynet, John Connor, that sort of stuff, but obviously leaving out some of the little bits that he's not supposed to mention because it's a lot to take in. Then Sarah and Kyle decide to go to a hotel, and they end up bumping uglies. They bump uglies, and she falls pregnant after the first try. It's quite a feat if you can do it first time. There's a member of my family now who I'm not going to mention, but if she watches this, she'll know who she is, who has just become pregnant. So I don't know if it's first go, but if it is, then fair dues. I don't actually know much of the story after that. And then the Terminator manages to track him down. There's a huge fight, huge explosion where the Terminator gets very badly damaged. It gets hit by a truck, and then which is full of petrol. And Kyle throws a bomb into the back of it after he's been shot in a sort of motorway driving thing, and he manages to blow up the truck. And then they think, oh yeah, we've done it, blah blah blah. And then suddenly the Terminator gets up, and it's just a metal skeleton, which bend over. Which actually no, is in my Manbox review. I don't know. I can't remember which one it is. However, it is the metal endoskeleton of the Terminator. They go into a factory. There's a bit of a fight in there. The Terminator gets blown in half. Carl Reese gets killed from his injury or the explosion. It never really states. The Terminator's been blown in half. It crawls after Sarah Connor, who's been injured, so she can't. So she's having to kind of crawl away. She crawls through a hydraulic press. The Terminator follows. She captures, traps it, and then crushes it in the hydraulic press. And then in the director's version, you actually find out that the factory is Cyberdyne, and then it ends up with her being heavily pregnant and then driving off. Then it's set in Terminator 2, which is set in 19. It's meant to be about 10 years old, so it's about 95, I think. I actually can't remember. The original Terminator has never been destroyed. However, there's a new version Terminator which is made out of liquid metal, which has the ability to change its shape to hide, so it's a lot more dangerous than the T800 Terminator from the previous film. However, the Resistance have sent a T800 back because it's the only thing that can kind of survive the attacks from a T1000, and it happens to be the same model and shape face of the Terminator from the previous film. Now, by this point, Sarah Connor has been put into a mental asylum because no one can obviously believe her, and she can't back it up. And she thinks that the company who took it have basically been lied, and they have. They have been building the prototype to Skynet, which is a neural net processor, which is effectively the brain of the Terminator, which is like a little chip. It's about yay big. It's about an inch and a bit long. With a lot of little squares on it. So the Arnie Terminator comes back and tries to find John Connor. Now they think he's here to kill him, and the other one, who's Robert Patrick, who was in Charlie's Angels 2 before he gets killed by Demi Moore. He actually turns out to be the baddie, and he has very little dialogue in it as well. That's the thing I like about these films, because they have very little. The bad guys have very little dialogue. They do everything through action rather than speaking like, "Mr. Bond, I'm going to kill you now." It's kind of like, "No, I'm just going to kill you. Dead, done." So John Connor at this point has been thrown around foster home to foster home. He then gets picked up by the Terminator after the T1000 goes after to try and kill him and kind of misses its chance. But this version of the Terminator has been programmed to obey John Connor regardless of what he says. So there's a scene where he tells him to lift his leg up, and he just does, And then another one, he then says, I want to get my mum and you're going to help me. So they go to Pescadero Mental Institute and break Sarah Connor out. At this point, the T-1000 has had the same idea, so it goes and finds them. And there's a bit of a fight in there as Sarah's trying to escape, but she can't bring herself to trust the Terminator for the obvious reasons. Then they in the middle of their escape, Sarah gets injured. She gets sliced down the back because the T-1000 can mold its arms into spears and knives and stabbing weapons rather than guns and explosives because they have chemicals and moving parts. It's too difficult, but solid objects are easier to do. So it can make things like hooks, hammers, knives, anything like that. And they decide that the Terminator can be reprogrammed so it can learn. It's got when they're sent out on a mission, it's set to read only by Skynet. And then they flip the switch, and it now starts to learn how to become more human. They do that, and they find the man who is going to inevitably build Skynet. It's a guy called Miles Dyson. Sarah goes to his house and attempts to kill him, but can't pull herself to actually pull the trigger and kill him. The Terminator and John arrive, and they want proof, so the Terminator rips off the skin off its arm, showing the metal arm, which Dyson has got the original arm from the original Terminator in a vault in Cyberdyne. They then go there, there's a massive fight, and they blow up all the equipment and all the data and all the information, and Dyson gets killed. There's a highway chase where the T-1000 goes after them after all the SWAT team have been basically taken out by the Terminator, but not killed because he's been told by John not to. And then they go to a metal refinery where the Terminator gets damaged, and they think it's by the T-1000. Like it gets its arm ripped off, it gets most of its face ripped off, most of its chest smashed to bits, and then it gets impaled. John nearly gets killed by the T-1000, who has taken on the form of Sarah Connor, and he only manages to notice it because the T-1000 has been badly damaged, so it's kind of it's changed. Its chameleon program is not working properly, so it's starting to fuse with the floor. Sarah comes on and basically, throughout the whole film, has shown no interest. She will protect him, but she's not shown any motherly side to John, and that's really what he wants. And then the Terminator reappears after reactivating and shoots the T-1000 in the chest with a grenade launcher. It blows up, falls into a liquid metal, and dissolves. And then at the end, John says it's over. The Terminator says, no, it's not. There's one more chip after you've destroyed the original Terminator's chip and the Terminator's arm. There's one more chip in my head. I've got to die. The Terminator is going to kill itself, but John's like reluctant to let it go. And he says, now I know why you cry, but it's something I can never do. And that's because it's the only father type figure that it's ever had. Sarah acknowledges the fact that it's given its life to actually protect him and accepts this Terminator's kind of, yeah, thank you for your help and everything, but I will not trust any other one except you. Then it goes into the molten metal and deactivates, and then that's it. Now, they should have stopped those. It should have been Terminator 1, Terminator 2, done, like Aliens. But then they made Terminator 3, which was crap. Then they kind of brought it back with Terminator Salvation. Now, that is an okay film, but they really should have just left it at Terminator 1 and 2. That was the original plan. Those two are on my all-time favourites list. I was actually meant to watch Terminator last night, but I had a curry with my parents and my brother and his wife instead. So, free Chinese and apple pie and company, as opposed to sitting at home watching the film by yourself. There are many other days I can watch it, but today that wasn't one of them. Now I'm going to leave this off because I'm about to run out of time, but if you can, watch those two films. If you like Terminator 3, then you're in a minority of your own. I am one day going to do the full set when it's finally finished, but until that day I'll have to hold off, I guess. So I'm going to sign off. You have a good week, and I will see you next week. Bye.